Hope is one of those words that sounds beautiful on the surface. It is the thing we are told to cling to when life feels unbearable. Never lose hope, people say. It sounds inspiring, almost poetic. But what if hope is not the light we believe it to be? What if hope is simply fear in disguise, stretched into the future, like a shadow that never quite goes away? Think about the last time you were truly afraid. Maybe you feared losing your job. Maybe you feared being alone. Maybe you feared getting sick or being forgotten. In those moments, didn't you also begin to hope? You hoped you wouldn't be fired. You hoped someone would love you. You hoped the test results would be good. That hope felt like comfort. But wasn't it born out of fear? If you weren't afraid in the first place, would you need to hope at all? This is where Jiddu Krishnamurti forces us to stop and look deeply. He says that hope is not freedom. It's not clarity. It's the mind running away from fear and painting a pretty picture of tomorrow. But tomorrow doesn't exist yet. Tomorrow is only in your imagination. So what is hope, if not a continuation of the fear you already carry? We rarely question it, because hope feels noble. It feels better than despair. We say things like, "I have hope for humanity," or "I hope my children will have a better future." These statements sound good, but if you listen carefully, each one is rooted in a sense of fear. Why do you hope for a better world? Because the present feels broken. Why do you hope your child will succeed? Because you fear they may fail. In this way, hope is never separate from fear. It is fear, projected forward. Now I know this might sound unsettling. You might be thinking, if I let go of hope, what do I have left? Isn't hope what keeps us alive? That's exactly why we cling to it. We think that without hope we would collapse. But what Krishnamurti suggests is far more radical. Maybe the collapse is exactly what we need. Not collapse into despair, but collapse into seeing reality as it is. Only then can something truly new be born. Imagine this. You are standing in a dark room, terrified. Out of desperation, you light a candle. That candle is hope. It flickers. It gives you a little comfort. But the room is still filled with shadows. You cling to the candle because it feels safer than nothing. But what if, instead of clutching that tiny light, you actually stopped, stood still, and allowed your eyes to adjust to the darkness? Slowly, your vision would expand. You might realize that the room was never as terrifying as you thought. You didn't need the candle. The candle was keeping you blind to the larger reality. Hope is like that candle. It feels like light, but it keeps you from truly seeing. It keeps you dependent, always reaching for tomorrow, always waiting for things to be different. It makes you passive. It tells you, don't worry now, someday it will all work out. But in that waiting, life is slipping by. Krishnamurti once said, to understand the present, you must stop escaping into the future. Hope is one of the most subtle escapes. And the tragedy is that we don't even recognize it as an escape. We celebrate it. We build slogans around it. But an escape, no matter how beautiful, is still a prison. Think about your own life. What are you hoping for right now? Maybe you hope to find love. Maybe you hope to finally feel secure. Maybe you hope that your struggles will end. Ask yourself, what fear lies underneath each of those hopes? Is it the fear of being alone? The fear of not being enough? The fear of never arriving? And here's the crucial part. When you see that hope is tied to fear, you might also see that chasing hope is a way of feeding fear. The more you hope, the more you affirm that something is missing, something is wrong, something must be fixed tomorrow. So fear never leaves you. It simply hides behind the mask of hope. This doesn't mean you should give up on life or stop caring. It means you have to look at reality directly, without leaning on tomorrow as your crutch. Without saying, one day I will be happy. Can you face life as it is, without escaping into the idea of what could be? That is the challenge Krishnamurti offers. To live without hope is not despair. It is not giving up. It is the beginning of clarity. Because only when you stop waiting for light to come later Do you start to see the light that is already here? Most of us are so used to leaning on hope that the very thought of dropping it feels unbearable. We say to ourselves, if I don't hope, I'll fall into despair. But isn't despair just the other side of the same coin? Hope and despair are not opposites. They are deeply connected. One cannot exist without the other. You hope because you are afraid of despair, and when hope fades, despair arrives. Then, when despair becomes too heavy, you reach again for hope. And so the cycle continues. This cycle keeps us trapped in time, in the future, in the not yet. You might notice it in small, everyday moments. You hope that Friday will come sooner. You hope the meeting will end quickly. You hope your plans will work out. All of this keeps your mind leaning forward, never fully in the present. And because you are not here now, life feels like something you're constantly waiting to begin. But what happens if you stop hoping altogether? It sounds radical, almost dangerous. Yet let's explore it carefully. If you stop hoping, you are no longer postponing life. You are no longer saying, things will be better tomorrow. You are forced to look directly at what is right now. That direct contact with reality might be painful at first. It might mean facing your loneliness without the promise that someone will come. It might mean facing your financial struggles without the comforting thought that one day it will all be fine. It might mean seeing your fear without putting a blanket of hope over it. But in that direct seeing, something powerful happens. You stop escaping. And when you stop escaping, your mind becomes quiet. Fear no longer stretches into tomorrow, because there is no tomorrow in that moment. There is only what is. In that clarity, you may discover a kind of freedom you never expected. Consider how often we use hope as a substitute for action. A person may say, I hope to be healthy. But instead of actually changing their diet, exercising, or caring for themselves now, they rely on hope. Another says, I hope to find peace. But instead of questioning their attachments, their ambitions, their constant comparisons, they hold on to hope, like a wish. Hope becomes a way of postponing transformation. It makes us passive spectators of our own lives. Krishnamurti pointed to this with absolute clarity. Truth is never in the future. Freedom is never in the future. Love is never in the future. They can only exist now, in the present moment, when the mind is not running away through hope or hiding in fear. Take relationships, for example. So many couples live on hope. I hope things will get better between us. I hope he will change. I hope she will love me the way I need. That hope is comforting, but it's also dangerous. Because as long as you hope, you are not actually seeing what is happening between you and the other person. You are not facing the reality of your connection or your lack of it. Hope keeps you blind, and in that blindness, relationships wither. Or look at society. Politicians thrive on hope. Every election we hear the same promises. Hope for change. Hope for a better tomorrow. And people hold on, generation after generation, always waiting, always hoping. But while we hope, corruption continues, wars continue, injustice continues. Hope becomes a drug that numbs us, preventing us from acting directly and intelligently in the present. So what is the alternative? If not hope, then what? The alternative is direct perception, to see things as they are, without distortion, without escape. That clarity brings its own kind of light, not the fragile, flickering light of hope, but a steady illumination that comes from understanding. When you see the truth of something, you don't need to hope. You act, or you stop acting. But either way, you are free. For example, if you see clearly that your lifestyle is harming your health, you don't need to hope to be healthy. The seeing itself brings a natural shift in how you live. If you see clearly that fear is destroying your relationships, you don't need to hope for love. The awareness of fear itself is the beginning of freedom from it. This is why Krishnamurti said that hope is not light, but the extension of fear. Because as long as we depend on hope, fear is always there, just waiting in the background. And when fear is present, love cannot be, freedom cannot be, clarity cannot be. Now take a moment to reflect on your own life. What hopes are you carrying right now? Ask yourself honestly, what fear are they hiding? If you let go of that hope, if you stop projecting into tomorrow, what remains? Perhaps silence, perhaps discomfort. But stay with it. Don't run. In that very silence, you may discover that you don't need hope at all. You only need to see. And when you truly see without fear, without escape, you may find something far greater than hope. You may find a direct experience of peace, of freedom, of love, right here, right now. That is the light we've been searching for, and it has nothing to do with hope. Hope feels comforting, but it always postpones life into tomorrow. It is fear stretched into the future, a promise that never truly arrives. Krishnamurti reminds us that truth, love, and freedom cannot exist in hope. They exist only now. To live without hope is not despair, it is clarity. When you face life directly, without escaping, fear dissolves. And when fear ends, you no longer wait for light in the future. You discover it is already here in this very moment. That is the freedom beyond hope. The only light that matters.